Back in public session, and we're going to go ahead and start off with the pledge, tonight led by Sean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is open forum. Kristen, do you have any items for open forum for us tonight?
I do have two things. I would just like to thank the Road and Bush community as well as the town staff for a very successful first Monster Mash that was held on Saturday throughout the town center. I heard that it was extremely well attended and that a lot of families had a lot of fun, and hoping to expand on that for next year, and we're already trying to plan our next partnership event. I also wanted to let the community know that with the impending, with the government shutdown and the impending reduction of SNAP benefits, our community services teams are gathering this week to understand how we can help the community members who may be in need, and we will be putting out some press later this week about food donation locations and where people who are in need can access food. And I know we will talk about special town meeting later in this meeting, but just wanted to thank all the board and committee members and town staff for their efforts on what seemed like a successful special town meeting last evening.
Yeah, I just want to echo the terrific work done by the staff, everyone who made it happen. It's never easy, and there's a lot of work behind the scenes, so it's much appreciated. So thank you, Kristen, for bringing that up. Other open forum items from the board? Anything tonight? Any open forum items from the public? Yes, Emily, please.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. This is probably for the select board mostly, and thank you for your indulgence, everybody else. And I don't mean this in any way to be critical, but I did notice recently when I was doing some research on the terms that are expiring for this coming May election and appointments, that both the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee and the Community Behavioral and Mental Health Committee's terms, for the most part, all expire on the same day. And so I just wanted to put that out there, and hopefully something can happen before then that they can get staggered terms. If it were me and I were on a committee, it'd be nice to sort of have the committee work on that and then make a proposal to you all in terms of appointments. But that's just a little detail between now and the end of June.
Great.
So Emily, just to
Thanks,
respond
Emily.
to that, I believe that there are some errors on the database that we are working through with the clerk's office and the town manager's office, so they may not all be on the same appointment schedule.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We're working to clean
Okay,
that up.
because that's what I printed this out from the website. Okay, great. That would be
Bring
great.
that to our attention.
Thanks.
So we will have many chances for public comment during the budget discussion, as I've talked about with Christina, who will be sharing that part. So this is the right time if you've got any public items that are not related to the budget discussion. It's related to the budget discussion, you'll have a chance when we get there. Anything online, Kristen, in terms of open forum items?
You do not see any hands raised online at this point in time.
Okay. If there are none other, let's go on to the consent agenda. Tonight we have a request to approve a special license. It's a Farmhouse Casino Gala. The applicant is Good Pickin' Farm, Sandra Habe. The date is November 8th, 2025.
So I do have a change. They,
Okay.
last minute today, they have asked for 11/22 instead of 11/8.
Okay, so as amended, it'll be November 22nd, 2025. The time is time the same?
Yes, the time is the same.
5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Location is 5 and 6 Gould Road. Any questions from the board about that before we go ahead and vote? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, with that, we are already in session. I'll turn things over to you, Christina, to call our school committee and finance committee colleagues into session.
Okay, I'll call to order the Finance Committee on October 28th, 2025. Catherine, do you want to?
And I call to order the school committee on October 28th, 2000.
Sounds good. All right, so let's jump right in to the presentation that we have, I believe, from Kristen for FY25 and through FY27. And we will stop at certain points to, get anybody's comment. So if you want to just wait, we'll give opportunities.
Sure, and Dr. Chu will be joining the presentation as well, and Dan O'Donnell, our finance director, will fill in if there's any questions, and I believe Jenny Lynn's here as well from the school department, and Courtney Moran if there's any other questions. So really appreciate everyone being here this evening. I did not anticipate town meeting to go till 11 o'clock last night when we scheduled this tri-board meeting, so we will move as efficiently as possible. We wanted to get the three boards together to talk about where we ended in fiscal 25, where we currently are in fiscal 26, and some of the pressure points that we are already seeing come to bear that may be coming into light for fiscal 27 as we prepare for that budget. So again, I want to just give a quick reminder of our strategic outcome areas for members of the public who aren't familiar. Like I said, closing out of the fiscal 25 budget, our 26 budget challenges that we are seeing, and you saw those for Article 2 last evening related to some of the budget supplementals, talking about our fiscal 27 budget process to give people a sense of the dates and the timing of that, our fiscal 27 pressure points, and again, how the public can stay engaged over the next few months as we move forward. So these are our strategic outcome areas that the Select Board adopted in February of 2024. We are aligning our budget requests related to these items, and I won't harp on them this evening, but just wanted to bring them to the forefront. So in terms of how we closed out the fiscal 25 town meeting, and I will try to, Dan, if you're able to go to move that screen back there, I apologize. Our revenue exceeded projections presented at the March 2025 annual town meeting. Our new growth was approved at $890,944 when we had projected $850,000. Our state aid was approved at increase of $195,114 over the governor's budget that we had anticipated. And our local revenue was actually increased to $9,323,000 and change, and our free cash has been certified. Also, our general fund operating capital budgets closed out at $2.67 million. These are the details below, and all of that closes out to free cash, which we use on a yearly basis to fund our capital program for town and school services. So for fiscal 25, we did have our free cash certified at $6.2 million. Just wanted to thank the staff for being prepared. We had our treasurer collector retire. We had a new treasurer collector come on board, and our finance team did an amazing job getting that free cash certified in order to prepare for the special town meeting that we had last evening.
Kristen?
Yes.
One thing that I apologize for not catching this earlier, but I also think it's important just to remind everybody that we did use, from the school side, we ended up using the Special Education Reserve Fund, which we had not used before, and I feel like as a closeout of FY25, that's kind of an important thing for everyone to remember, that we used $400,000 of that to help us resolve excessive special education costs as well, too. So I apologize for not having us put that on this as well.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up tonight.
So I think at this point, just as a closeout for 25, if anyone from the board has any questions or comments, and then we'll go to the audience. Nate?
You had gone to that next slide. That's part of the closeout discussion?
No, this is fiscal 26 budget update,
Okay.
so this is just closeout of 25.
The piece I wanted to talk about was, I think the details in the next slide, but it's about this past year, which is the Chapter 70 funding in particular that came in. So as part of the, as I understand it, part of the increase in state aid that came in, a big portion of that was Chapter 70 funding. And
I'm just wondering, Dave, if you want to hold until we're on that slide, just so we're all looking at that slide. This is fiscal 25, so this is the year that already closed out.
The Chapter 70 funding.
Chapter 70 funding is for the fiscal year
26.
we're in now, which is on the next slide.
okay, I thought it was part of the state budget net general fund increase over the governor's budget.
That contributed to fiscal 26 budget.
I understand. Thanks, Tom.
Anybody else? Anyone from the audience? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, let's go ahead.
So the fiscal 26 update. So we started fiscal 26 July 1st of 2025. Chapter 70 did come in from the governor's budget higher than anticipated, but we did have state assessments, which were mostly from school choice sending tuition and charter school tuition, that the superintendent can certainly explain more than I can. The net general fund impact from state aid from the governor's budget was $195,000. The circuit breaker will increase by $700,000, supplementing our fiscal 27 budget. The town accounts reduced in fiscal 26 did need special town meeting appropriation, which you saw last evening. And there was the timely capital requests for fiscal 26 that also went to special town meeting last evening.
Okay. Nate?
I have a question.
I wonder what it is.
Thank you. So on the FY26 Chapter 70, so I'm just trying to think. This actually somewhat relates to the Chapter 70 increase from last year as well, because if I remember correctly, 2 years in a row we've seen Chapter 70, thanks to our great work of our state representative and our state senator and their colleagues in the legislature, of actually increasing overall Chapter 70 funding above and beyond what the governor's proposed by the time the budget process is completed. And that's benefited our town and the other towns across the Commonwealth for the last 2 years in particular. And I just want to make sure that as we think about this for both, I think it's a bit water under the bridge at this point for last year and even for this year, but as we're moving forward in thinking about when we have these opportunities, that we think about the messaging behind it. And the messaging that I'm talking about in particular is that there was press releases from both the House and the Senate when that increase occurred, talking about the new investment, additional money above and beyond what the governor put forward in our school systems. And so as we consider how we use this revenue, I just want to make sure that as a town, while it's not incumbent on the town to give that entirely to the school department, that the schools are very much part of that conversation and thinking forward, how do we use that, since otherwise we have a bit of a messaging mismatch, which is our state is saying we're giving extra money to the towns to support the schools. And so if you're a citizen just reading the Boston Globe or listening to Channel 5, you hear that and think that's great, my schools are going to benefit from that. But if we're not necessarily then translating that into the schools in the same way, I think we need to just be able to answer to that as to why. So I'm not saying that it has to be any type of policy or anything, but to me it's very important that we just think about where the source of funding is coming from a local aid perspective, what the state's overall message was around that, and how we can ensure that we're at least being consistent in that with the taxpayers of Westford as well, since that's part of their state taxes that they paid. So just calling that out from that perspective.
Tom?
Yeah, so it's a great point. So looking back further in the past, last year and this year, it's relatively new that we've had we've had excellent additional collections on Chapter 70. I think that there is, at least my current thinking is to bring this to the select board at the time that we're doing closeouts for the year, which is the end of the budget cycle, and have a conversation with basically everyone here about what an appropriate use is for the additional funds that came in under Chapter 70. I think there are things you could choose to do. You could choose to transfer that into the Special Education Stabilization Fund. You could decide that it was an anomaly and that we should decide that it should get returned to free cash and used for capital and other projects. So I think there's a decision to make there, and it felt to me like the right time to do it is when we're actually closing out at the end of the year. I also had a conversation with my colleague Valerie, which you can see if I'm getting this right, but there is a question: if you find out early enough, could you actually propose to do something different and come to special town meeting with an additional service add back with the funding? You could do that. Now, like you said, the timing availability for that is passed. But if we think that this could happen again, we could think a little bit about, in terms of scenario planning, if something like this happened again, what process would we entertain? Because the traditional special town meeting appropriation, I'm going on kind of long here, but that usually is there to address the fact that we have line item approval at town meeting. If we have an extra legal bill that comes in for some good reason, we have to vote to change that. We don't have the ability to make internal allocation changes like you can within the school budget. And I envy the schools and their budget ability for being able to do that, because it does create a huge sort of administrative barrier and burden to have to go back and make these changes. Typically, that process is only to make these small sort of changes based on what spending is. Typically, we don't expect to actually overspend relative to what's been approved. We just have to change those budget items. Typically, other things come in below and it all nets out. So if we were to entertain the idea of an additional revenue source emerging after the budgeting process has been complete and actually adding back a service, for example, we'd have to decide together kind of how that process would work and when we'd want to trigger it. So I think there's some good conversation to have there, and I do think that we should think carefully about what the appropriate use is for the 195 that's identified here. But it at least feels to me like the right time to do that is when we're actually at the turn back period and have an opportunity like we have in the past to decide what to do with those turn back funds.
Well, fingers crossed we have the same problem next year, and that we're having that conversation. Thank you. That's great.
Just
Anybody
related
else?
to that, I believe this was from the Fair Share Amendment funding, and we also saw an increase in Chapter 90 funding rate for transportation.
So the education was spread across the whole state for community education, community colleges, the like. I don't believe that we saw that here
And
for
school
the
lunches.
Right, but not in terms of our town school budget. Our Chapter 90 appropriation was higher as well from that fair share, which has
Yes.
been 2 years now as well.
Yes. So that was an amendment that was passed, was it 2 years ago now?
Yes.
So we're seeing the investment from that.
Anybody else from the board? Anyone from the audience? Okay.
Great. So we want to move on and talk about what we are currently seeing for our fiscal 27 budget constraints. I have sat with all departments, including the schools, to go through the fiscal 27 budget requests, and we are currently working through that as an entire group right now. We are seeing our Medicare costs increasing substantially. We are seeing that we do need to continue to increase our OPEB funding, our other post-employment benefits funding. Last year, we actually reduced it due to the override, and we were told on our bond rating call that we are very close to the tipping point of losing our AAA bond rating, and that could be thousands and thousands of dollars when we go to borrow for that next project. We are reviewing all of our public facilities. As many of you are aware, we did a town study for the majority of our town buildings. SMMA also did the analysis for the school buildings, and there's an extreme amount of deferred maintenance on our facilities. We also saw a heightened amount of insurance claims due to water leaks and other items that we're trying to get a handle on. And we just don't have the manpower to oversee projects that are moving forward in an appropriate manner. So we're seeing ourselves very constrained from a public facility standpoint across the board. Also, our professional development budgets have been cut to the absolute minimum for our employees, especially on the town side, and Dr. Chu can talk to the school side. We're really just keeping those certifications that are required for a PE or an accountant or the like, and it's really not helping with morale for our employees or helping us develop to be as efficient and effective as possible for our town. We also have a need for a management analyst for data analysis and special projects to be more efficient and effective. There has been a request from the Economic Development Committee. They presented to the Select Board a few weeks ago in order to try to keep pace and build our commercial and industrial tax base. So I encourage you to watch their presentation from a few weeks ago. And they do have a monetary ask this year where they had been supplemented for 18 months with ARPA funds for a consultant. We're also seeing an increase for building inspector staffing due to increase in our housing and commercial developments. We have 37 Powers Road that is permitted and will go to construction, and several other multifamily developments in the pipeline, as well as those commercial developments that lead towards our commercial tax base. We want to make sure that we're making technology enhancements to be more efficient and user-friendly. For an example, we'll be asking for a new permitting system and software that would be used system-wide, not just for building inspection. And we also want to make sure that our security plans for town and school are in tip-top shape to make sure we're not at risk in those areas. We have constraints in police and fire. As you're aware, 2 positions for each department was reduced in the budget. At that point in time, there were no layoffs in fiscal 25 due to attrition. But we are seeing a rise in calls on the Route 110 corridor right now, even without new growth from expansion. And we're also going to be seeing upcoming service demands for those MBTA housing units as well as any other commercial development. We also have reduced our daily patrol. For fire, with the reduction of the firefighters, we have closed Rogers Fire Station 3 times on a daytime shift and other times intermittently when necessary. We've had an increase in overtime costs due to that as well. We do see a need to increase our paramedic training. As you may have read in the news, we're not the only town who's struggling to recruit paramedics, and if we have an incentive to send them to training, recruit them, and have a sign-on period, we feel that that would be beneficial for the town of Westford. And we are seeing that our mutual aid calls in and out of Westford are increasing due to the overall regional strain. I'll turn this over to Dr. Chu for his remarks related to what the schools are seeing for their budget constraints.
Sure, thank you. So our primary concern right now is our class sizes. So we have class sizes specifically in our elementary schools. The guidelines and recommendations that we've historically been following has been that in kindergarten through 5th grade that we would have class sizes of 22 or less. And right now, in our 5th grade across the district, 56% of our 5th grade classrooms are above that recommendation. 28% of our 4th grade class sizes are above that recommendation. And in Robinson, which is a K to 1 to 2 school, their class sizes specifically at Robinson in 1st and 2nd grade are exceeding those recommendations. So that's a significant concern that we have. We were able to utilize Title I funds. We were able to carry them over from FY25 because the window of time it allows you to, it gives you till the end of September 30th in order to utilize those funds. So we're able to sometimes carry those year to year in ways that we don't necessarily with our fiscal budget just because of the federal timeline. And so we were able to use FY25 funds to hire a Title I tutor to help support grades 4 and grades 2 at Miller. Now, the way that Title I works, Title I is specifically associated with low income, and so we have to identify specifically where students who would be receiving those services are located. And so the top 2 placements were at Day and Miller, and so we were able to support students in those grades with like I said, the Title I tutor, which has been helpful there. One of the things in terms of constraints for FY27, as I mentioned, the K to 2 school at Robinson, we are concerned about those class sizes over there. So that's something we want to look at for FY27. Do we need to increase the sections in Robinson in order to bring those class sizes back down so that they're more equitable and similar to the rest of the K to 2 class sizes throughout the district? We heard a lot last year from families and students at WA because we had combined a number of the language sections and we learned about the problems that existed there. We were able to address some of those this year by separating some of those sections, but there are still some combined sections. It's not the same issues that we had last year with a much wider range of levels of students in one class, but we still have, I think, combined classes that we would like to be able to address in the future. Now, one of the issues that we learned was that every single year, like I said, Title I is based on the Westford's low-income designation in the first place, and every year we're told that we might be at risk at losing that funding, and we have now finally been told that for FY26 we will not be receiving that funding, and that has a trickle-down effect. So if you don't receive Title I funding one year, then in a subsequent year there are other federal grants that you don't receive. So I'll kind of talk about that in a second. And with the loss of that Title I funding, we had used those funds to hire an adjustment counselor to support the Day Miller School, which again, because that was where we had identified the highest population of Title I students. And since we lost that funding, we lost that position. So we just didn't, we didn't continue the funding that, so that's why I wanted to make sure that that was clear to people. Then, as I was starting to say a minute ago, without the Title I funds, what ends up happening is that Title IV-A specifically, which is something that, it's a fund that we're able to use for professional development, that's something that we won't see in FY '27. So because we didn't receive the FY '26 funds, we won't receive the Title IV-A funds in FY '27. And that piggybacks on what Kristen was talking about with professional development concerns. The schools have been able to benefit from grant support for a lot of our professional development. And so without that, we'll have to figure out how we are going to be able to provide that professional development moving forward. So greater concerns moving forward is that we have seen a significant need in with our school psychologists. Our school psychologists are completely maxed out to the point that we've had to contract out for additional services to meet the needs of what we have here in town. And so one of the things we're going to be looking at with FY '27 is a way in which we can fund an additional school psychologist to help alleviate that strain of the assessments. Currently, the staffing doesn't have the capacity to provide what we think should be sufficient consultation to the rest of the special education teams and to the teachers and other counselors as well. When we were looking at the FY '27 budget, initially our projections were very concerning in terms of, as we were rolling everything over just with the level services. We did get some good news, though. So some good news here is that our circuit breaker funding was increased for FY '26. So because, if you remember, especially everyone who is sitting at this table will most likely remember, FY '24 and FY '25, our special education costs skyrocketed because the OSD with the 14% increase. Now, circuit breaker has increased by $700,000, which we apply to the next year. So FY '26 circuit breaker has increased by $700,000, which we will apply to FY '27. So that has been good news when we looked at our initial concerns for FY '27. Is there anything, Courtney or Jenny, that I'm missing, or? Okay, thank you.
This is a pretty sophisticated group, Chris, but you just want to explain a little bit about what circuit breaker is, just for people that are tuning in for the first time.
Thank you, yeah. So circuit breaker is, the state of Massachusetts will reimburse a certain amount of special education funding. Because special education costs are so significant and across the country and across the state of Massachusetts, that the state will reimburse eligible costs. So every single year, our special education department will send a report to the state that will document every single penny that has been spent for special education costs, and then they will evaluate what they believe is an eligible cost, because they will say that the local district should be able to support a certain amount of those costs, but they recognize that special education costs can exceed what the local contributions are able to support. And so then the state will then look at that, and then they will reimburse us a certain amount each calendar year. The best practice, which we have been doing for a long time, is to take, say, the FY '25 circuit breaker reimbursement and then apply that to a future year. So we take the FY '25 reimbursement and then we apply it to the FY '26 budget. We will take the FY '26 reimbursement and apply it to the FY '27 budget. Does that help?
In special education.
To
It's
help.
not discretionary spending.
Thank you very much, yes. It is directly related to the special education costs. Yep.
Sean, and then.
Oh, thank you. Two questions. So of the perceived 700,000 that we would be receiving, right, or that the WPS would be receiving, is some of that going to be used to replenish the special ed reserves? Okay.
No, that will all directly go into our costs for the general
27.
operating fund,
Yeah.
for the offset for the year. The
Okay.
special education reserve has been something that we've been able to put, if we had excess funds at the end of the year. So for the past, well, not last year, but the 3 years before that, we were able to put $200,000 into that fund to try to build that up. Our goal is for it to be at $1 million. It's currently, because of, we had built it up to $728,000 in FY '24. And so last year in FY '25, we needed to take $400,000 out of it. So the current balance at the end of FY '25 was $342,000. So that circuit breaker doesn't play into that.
Okay, and is there any thoughts of how to kind of pump those reserves up again, or is there a?
Well, if at the end of the year, when we're going through the year, if we've been able to recognize or been able to realize any savings, then we will look to then put that into that reserve account. But it's basically something we're trying to build up when we have some type of excess.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Was this-
you're.
Yeah, okay.
It's all right.
You're next.
So I think this will be a quick question. So Chris, the Title I funding, what amount do we typically receive for that historically? And I would assume since we didn't get it for '26, I would assume we're not expecting to get it for FY '27 as well?
That is a fair assumption. The timeline in which they tell us that we're getting it is always later than we would hope for. I want to say it's been around $100,000. Yeah. So it typically has been, we've been able to use it to fund a position or maybe two positions, depending on what the positions were, historically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, we won't know until July if we would get that money, and you can't supplant. You would have to supplement, so it has to be a new expenditure that you're using for Title I. So it's a tricky bucket of money.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just going to give like a 30-second general education point on the cycle of the budget. So what happens if we underspend, which we typically do actually underspend on some things because of positions that we're not able to fill in the timing we expect or something, we will turn back those funds to free cash. Free cash is then the source of our capital budget. So on the town, so this is a little bit different between towns and schools. By mutual accord, when the schools when the special education stabilization fund was created, we all agreed that were the schools to have any turnback funds, any available funds at the end of the year, they would put that in the stabilization fund. So any of the funds that are unspent because of timing issues or whatever end up there on the school side. On the town side, it all returns to free cash and then is subsequently used for capital. So just that's part of how the money flows.
Anybody else? Valerie?
I just wanted to add like a data point for scale with the circuit breaker, because we're spending a lot of time talking about $700,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But for example, in FY '26, our out-of-district tuition costs were $6.7 million.
Thank you.
Right.
So it might sound like a white knight, but you know,
I mean, that's actually a good point. Jenny, can you remind us what that $700,000 increase, what is that total?
The total, after we have that $700,000 increase is $10 million.
Okay.
I just want to remind people, we are televising for WestfordCAT, so if you do speak, if you're able to just come to the microphone. Thank you so much.
She said $4 million.
Thank you.
for expenses that are 6 to 7.
Yeah.
That's right.
million.
Like,
Like-
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
no,
go
I
ahead,
just,
Kathy.
you know, what was 3 or 5, the issue unfortunately with the special ed is, like you said, because the tuition costs are so high. You know, what had been 3 or 4 years of trying to build this fund, you know, is very quickly wiped out if we have a year like we just did and, you know, we've reduced. So it's, it might sound like a lot, but with the, as you pointed out, Valerie, those costs are so high.
And I'll just add that,
Yeah.
you know, the reason you're getting an extra $700,000 is because you've spent a lot more
That's
than
right.
that. So it's all relative.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else on the board have anything for any of this? So, are we at the last, or is there one more?
I believe
I think the path forward is still coming, but
Okay,
this is a
for
great place to
For
start.
this, yeah.
So I just want to highlight the morale pieces, that we did receive emails from teachers about class sizes, and class size is not it's not necessarily equal from one school to the other. For example, in Abbott here, the classrooms are significantly smaller, so even though they may on paper have a smaller number of students, they're not able to educate the same way. Additionally, this goes beyond the classroom for the experience for the students. The cuts that we've seen, we at the finance subcommittee meeting the other day, we really recognized that at WA there were, I think it was close to 20 stipend positions that were not funded this year, meaning that there are either there's no capacity for teachers to take on those clubs, or they're just burning out. So these budget impacts are much more than what we can necessarily see on the surface, and this goes across town and schools. The service levels may not have dropped, but that's only because every employee is working extra hard to make the experience, and we are gonna burn employees out, town and school, if we continue down this path. So.
Thanks. Nate?
I just want to echo what Tom said there. As a parent of a first grader at Robinson, who went from a very reasonably sized kindergarten class with to one of 24 students in the first grade in a room with another 24 students because of our setup at Robinson. So 48 first graders all together with just 2 teachers. And we see it when we went there for Parents' Night, and the parents were talking, and that this is the real impact of what we have to deal with and will continue to have to deal with. And I know that we're not successful in an override, and I think that it is unfortunately showing in ways that could impact our children. And it's a very difficult transition for a first grader to go from a reasonable sized kindergarten environment with a teacher and a teacher's aide to a completely overcrowded first grade classroom in a shared space.
Sean, did you have?
Yeah. Just in light of that, so there's, I think the other concerning part is that decreases in class size are difficult to track, right? Or the effects of them. So we decrease a police officer or an emergency responder, right? We can measure that generally in response time, how many calls we're able to service, et cetera, right? We can measure those things pretty reliably, and it gives us a picture very quickly, right? When we decrease class sizes, at least in my experience, increase class sizes, it's much more difficult to track the effects of it, right? Because you got to look at the child's development. There's a variety of different indicators that you can look at, and you got to compare them nationally to children within Middlesex, within the rest of the state. So I concur with what's been said, and it's just something that we really have to be aware of going forward, because once we start to really notice the effects, it may be too late.
I don't want to beat the dead horse on that topic, but Dr. Chu was kind enough to take some of us on a tour of some of these classrooms as well. So I was able, with a few of our other colleagues here, to experience firsthand with the children in some of these classrooms. And there are desks that are crammed together that only can be configured in one way because there's not enough physical space for the desks. So a lot of the classrooms weren't able to have reading circles because there wasn't space enough for the kids to sit in an actual circle. So there really are real-time impacts, especially if you have the opportunity to be able to go in and see some of these classrooms in real-time action, where we're detrimental to the students, their ability to sit in circles, to have some of that interaction with their peers in the same way, to be able to set up desks in a way that allow for more collaborative learning. All that stuff is being impacted by the increases to class sizes.
I'm also wondering if this is having an impact on our special education costs, because I think, it's like a separate thing, but if you're not, there's kids who are going to become dysregulated and overwhelmed in that kind of environment. And I think you're going to see an increase of out-of-district placements potentially, and, you know, an increase in special education costs because as a result. So it's actually going to cost us more money in the long run.
It's possible.
Anything else, even on the town side? Any other, Tom?
I guess I just wanted to, I should have said this comment earlier, but could you just since it's such a big budget driver, could you just explain what's going on with healthcare, expected healthcare costs in the coming year?
Yeah, I can give the overview and then Dan will dig down into the budget. So this year we had enough in our health insurance trust that we increased the health insurance by 7%, where the previous year it was 8.3%, and the previous year it was 15%. I understand that 7% is still a huge number to our employees, especially compounded in those past 2 years increase. But the health insurance trust is leveling out. We were able to get some of our high cost claimants into different care situations or moved on to a different plan. So we are seeing a little bit more stability in that health insurance trust at this point in time, but we continue to monitor that. We did currently receive bids back last week for a health insurance consultant. We're going through those right now. There were 5 consultants that submitted bids, so we will see that process unfold over a period of about 6 months.
What's the process, though, just for people that don't know? Like, why did we hire the consultants?
Sure. So there was an impetus from this tri-board here that felt that we wanted to investigate our self-insured program to make sure that it was the best program for our employees and the best value for our taxpayers. So we decided to go out to bid to hire a health insurance consultant, which is independent from our health insurance broker, to understand, are we on the best situation being self-insured? Should we be looking at other programs such as Maya or the GIC or such other program?
Thank you. That was perfect.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I just add on to that? Or are we also looking at plan design changes as part of this consultant, or no?
Yes, they are looking at that and benchmarking.
When
Go ahead, Tom.
oh,
Hang
sorry.
on. No.
I was just gonna, so, Dan, so what's the impact, the expected impact on the town expense side for the pool? Is that also 7%?
So not quite, because we budget off the projected enrollment from a year back.
Okay.
So we adjust that as we move forward. So currently, the trust has about 4.8 million in it at this point in time, which is far better than it was last year.
Yeah.
However, in meeting with our consultant hub, they gave a projection for costs for the next 12-month period open enrollment, and where we have the town share and the employee share with the 7% increase, we're looking at a pretty modest increase for the budget next year, probably $300,000 to $400,000, where in the past couple of years it's been closer to $1 million. So we're not expecting a huge increase to that portion of the health insurance. However, Kristen did talk about the Medicare costs increasing here. Those are looking more at about, early indications we're seeing close to a 15%, but we don't have a final number yet. And that's more of a $2 million budget, so you're looking at like a $300,000 increase to that too. We will need to supplement the Medicare budget at the annual town meeting. We just don't know by how much at this point in time. So probably close to $200,000 or so, depending on where we end up.
In the global healthcare cost environment, I think if the employees are seeing 7% and the town is seeing a smaller number, that's kind of great. So that's a great number. But over a long period of time, it's grown much faster than 2.5%. So just for general public education, if something is growing faster than 2.5%, then it means you're pulling money out of other things just to stay level. So that's the environment we're in.
Catherine?
I just wanted to come back on the consultant. Do you mind me asking what kind of a timeline is on that?
Sure. So if we offer them the project, which the Health Insurance Trust has voted to fund that, it's about a 6-month turnaround.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And our open enrollment is November 1st.
That's right.
It's not a June, or it's not a July or a January.
So any recommendations they make or any changes, it would be impacting next November?
It could affect next.
Yeah, next November. Yeah.
And I think it may take longer. I think any plan migration actually may span several budget periods.
Sorry, one last thought. I know, just to circle back to Tom's point about, what you described as really a structural deficit, right, which we've talked ad nauseum about since Budget Task Force, when expenses are growing higher than your revenue. I'm just wondering if, so I don't know how many people in the room have seen the Massachusetts Municipal Association's report about the fiscal cliff. And it's a really great sort of set of data from this like third-party objective voice that actually looks at like, if you adjust for inflation, our most municipal budgets have only been growing by like 0.6%. And so there's just some really great data in there. I'm wondering if it makes sense to retroactively add it to this packet, or if there's a place we could put it to make it more accessible to residents or the public.
We can certainly add it to our budget page,
Okay.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That'd be great.
So it's up there.
Yeah, it validates, I said this at school committee a couple meetings ago, that it validates everything that was said leading up to the override discussion. But again, I think it's good information and puts a good narrative to it.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
Hello. Andrea Parent of Sweet. First of all, I do not want to denigrate or underestimate what you said, Dr. Chu, of the school committee in terms of really the issues that you're facing with the budget. But from my perspective, I also don't want to lose track of the issues that the town is facing as well from the budget, because, as I've always said, we are one community and we have one budget. And so we also have to not lose track of the fact, based on what you were saying, Kristen, is that we have some serious problems with our buildings that, because of all the deferred maintenance over the years, that we really need to, start to address. And I'm sure that the schools have the same problems with their buildings that we also need to start to address.
Well,
So
those are our buildings, that's to your point, they're town
right,
buildings.
they're the town buildings, and so I think we have to start to address all of those. So while the discussion has up until now focused on the schools, I just don't want to lose track of that as well. Just a couple of comments, Kristen. You mentioned the impact on our building department and inspections, given the number of units that may be coming online. I know in the past, and I think Dennis can probably even remember, when we were on the planning board, one of the things that we did ask some of these large developers is to cover the costs of the impact on the building committee, on the building department and our inspectors. And I guess I would hope that that's being considered again, because the impact is because of them, and I think that, as we've always felt, they should pay for part of that impact. So I know you mentioned last night that we were looking at fees across all of our departments, so I certainly hope that that's one of them, and that we can address that, because I think I certainly know from my recent conversations that our land use department is just like stretched to its absolute ultimate, and I'm concerned that some of them are going to, basically just lose their minds over the next couple of months. So I think anything we can do to help them out, I think they would appreciate. So.
Absolutely. And this didn't talk about revenue. We will be getting some offsets related to those building permit fees and new growth, but I really appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
And then I have one last question, and I'm not sure where it fits in this whole presentation, but I figure since I'm standing here, I'll ask it anyway. At the very beginning of the meeting, Kristen, you mentioned the impact that what's going on in Washington is going to have on our residents. I just read an article tonight that 1.1 million folks in Massachusetts are about to lose their SNAP benefits. There are also millions of people who may, in the next couple of months, also lose their heating benefits if this shutdown continues. I know in the past that we use free cash for capital improvements and for capital projects, but if this situation continues, and I am sure that we have, out of those 1.1 million people here in Westford who are going to be struggling, if either through free cash or other funds that the town might have, that there is a way that we're going to be able to help these folks through this year. And what we can do. I know that, I know this town, I know that donations are going to come in. I know that people are going to contribute to the food bank, or they're going to make monetary contributions. I'm confident of that, but I'm also concerned that that may not cover the needs of our folks here in Westford. And so as we're going through the budgetary process, not only considering the rest of fiscal year 26, but also looking ahead to fiscal 27, that we don't lose sight of the impact on these folks, and that hopefully we can find a way to help ease them through a situation that is through no fault of their own, that they're now having to endure and suffer. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Somebody else?
Hi, Stephanie Granger, representing the Board of Health. Tom invited us to have somebody here. And so I just wanted to point out a few of our concerns. Because I don't know that most people would understand where the Board of Health has concerns. But one of the big concerns that we have currently is that we bring in a large grant that is the result of our leading edge work on food safety. We're not living up to the requirements of that grant at this point in time by not having a full-time food inspector. We recently at least got a part-time food inspector, but it is a requirement to maintain that grant that we have a full-time food inspector given the size of our community. And that's an over $300,000 grant that is brought in. And we're concerned morale is an issue, particularly as the town grows. The requirements for septic inspections and work, the approvals and reviews and things continues to grow, and we have a staff that does not. And so it puts a lot of strain on the staff, even without the size of the offices that they're cramped into. So that's just a few concerns, but that grant for the food safety, as we're bringing in more businesses and more food places in town, and we are not meeting the requirements to maintain that grant.
Stephanie, can I ask, is that a budget issue that you don't have somebody full-time, or what's the problem, or you can't find somebody?
Budget issue. We are not given a full-time position for that.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, is the $300,000 grant for other expenses, and the in-kind expectation is that the town provides a 1 FTE food inspector, or is the grant supposed to be covering the 1 FTE food inspector?
No, the grant is not supposed to cover the food inspector.
The grant is for other costs that are incurred.
That's my understanding.
I see. So therefore, it's sort of an expectation of the town as an in-kind, as part of the conditions.
Yeah,
of the
I think, this one requires us to stay like on the forefront of the food safety codes and things like that. And in order to do that, part of the requirement, given the size of our town at this point in time, is to have a full-time food inspector.
Okay, thank you.
And Stephanie, that covers like restaurants, like food
Schools,
trucks,
food trucks, all of these things. So the more we grow, we have not even a full part-time, 19.75, I think, is what it is. I think we're trying to supplement it where we can with some other regional grants that we're part of, but it does not meet the requirements of that overall grant.
Thank you. Anybody else? I guess we can move on.
Sure. So just to finish out fiscal 27, so we talked a lot about the pressure points that we currently are aware of. There may be other things that come up as we're going through this process, and we really invite people to participate in the public hearings that the Finance Committee will have. We do not know what new growth will be. We're working on that with our Assessors Department and our Land Use Department. We certainly don't know what state aid will be. The governor's first initial budget will be out late January. We don't know what special education costs will be or reimbursement. There are several collective bargaining contracts out for both town and school. Our Neshoba Valley Technical High School assessment is a projected increased enrollment of 3 students for the town of Westford over the past year. We don't know what our health insurance utilization is going to be. We're estimating that, but we don't have the firm number as open enrollment closes this week. So we'll have that information within the next month. And then our local revenue is still to be projected. We had a very good year this past year in terms of local revenue with excise tax, meals, hotel tax, other local revenue that if there's questions, Dan can explain that. There will be permitting revenue from MBTA communities. The Westford Regency will be closing in December, but we don't know if that hotel tax will transfer to our other 2 hotels in town. We hope that that's the case. We hope that it doesn't transfer out of town. And then if there's no other questions on the unknowns, we can just go over the process. But I wanna-
Kristen, could I just point out on the collective bargaining contracts, just to put people, one of those this year is our Unit A on the school side, which is our largest unit of the town. So I think it's a good one just to make sure everyone is aware that this is quite a large bargaining session for the schools this year. It's quite impactful, or can be.
If there's nothing else, yeah, let's keep going.
So I just want to remind members of the committees and members of the public where we are in the process right now and where we will be going. So in September, our departments submitted their initial budget requests to my office, and the finance department has been crunching through those. As I said before, we've met with all of the departments to understand their asks. We've given them our expectations and what they may be seeing. We're currently reviewing those budgets, and we'll be coming down with what we need to supplement or cut at this point in time and having those discussions with the departments. The capital planning committee is in full swing reviewing the requests that have come in. The next meeting is November 17th.
November 7th.
7th, excuse me, November 7th, Friday morning, and then November 14th. Thank you, Dan. In December, both Dr. Chu and I will be giving our respective budget presentations to the select board and the school committee. I believe December 8th, which is the school committee, and December 9th, which is the select board, so please stay tuned.
Will be December 1st.
December 1st, okay, so you're a week ahead of us,
Yeah.
thank you. At least I had the month right.
Yeah.
In January, the Finance Committee will start deliberating on the budgets in the public hearing process. We have updated the budget website to reflect all of these dates, so it has the individual departments that will be appearing on each of those dates. We'll then be updating our budget projections in early February based upon the governor's projections and what we're seeing in our public hearings. In March, early March, we'll be hearing the recommendations of the select board for town meeting and the budget recommendation, and then ultimately at the end of March will be our annual town meeting in which the budget is presented and approved.
Thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
Any final thoughts? Tom?
I guess the experiment we're continuing to develop is how do we get first all the boards involved, but then also how do we engage in the public. So thank you for those who responded to my invitation here tonight. I guess just any ideas people have either tonight or other times about how to better engage the public on this, because it's their money and we're trying to do the best we can to make the right choices with it. But all that's much appreciated. So there is a robust sort of set of activities we already do, but I don't know, any ideas that people have for better ways to engage, bring more people in would be welcome.
Valerie?
I just think sometimes even beyond like the press release that we reach out to WestfordCAT and try to instigate an actual article about meetings like this before they happen, with like a couple quotes maybe, or I didn't see them repost that press release, so like the newsletter and their email didn't actually pick up I know it went on like at the town website, but didn't seem to get recycled through their outlets. So even if it turns into like an actual article, I think that could help grab people.
Okay, so I heard two things. One is just make sure it's in their rotation for what they're doing, which maybe didn't happen this time in the way we hoped. And the second is maybe to partner with them for a specific article about how the budgeting process works and how people can engage.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are having a little technical difficulty. This Zoom went off, and I'm trying to get it to work back on, so I don't think people can hear us, so we might just...
Okay, just pause.
Take a little pause then.
Apologize.
Vamp in place.
Yes, I feel like we have been on them. I feel like we haven't had one in a while, so maybe. Where do I volunteer for that? Probably offline. Because what we're doing, we do not think it's very helpful. Check with Dan.
Was it that computer you think? Okay.
the projector.
Oh, I see.
I think
I'm like,
that
why
might
is
be
it
the
up? Because it's
Wi-Fi.
the projector, yeah.
Looks like the Wi-Fi might be down.
Hari and Bill, can you hear us now?
Does anyone have Wi-Fi?
Yeah, my Wi-Fi disconnected.
Yeah, it's all disconnected.
Looks like it
Do you want to join through my phone?
Did you pay the bill, Dr. Chu?
Well, it was part of a grant, no.
Hari and Bill, can you hear us now?
Yeah, it works for me.
Yes, okay, they can hear us. We're just not gonna be able to see them right now, because I do need that computer to see them, so I'll do my best to navigate this.
I think it's back up. so.
There was one last slide that is in the packet, is just how to stay involved and how to stay engaged, so we'll have that posted, but I apologize, we can't show it on the screen right
Yeah,
now.
maybe we can post it on Facebook and somewhere on like the budget page or something. Okay. I'm gonna go to Noelle and then we'll come. Did you have something?
I had an idea of how to get this out to specifically, I guess, parents, is sending something out through the schools to the kids, that maybe there's a QR code of the budget process and how it all works and the timeline and how to get involved.
Well, I'm planning to put a link to the recording of this meeting on my Saturday. I'll be sending out my November 1st update. And so I was planning to talk about this and have a recording to this link, and depending on how long we go, it might only be I can tell people it's, an hour-long meeting or something like that. But I think that's a start, right? And then and then we talk about the budget process in general. But I think that's a great way for us to do that as well too.
And Valerie, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure one piece that was kind of missed was, I'm sure you all remember our infamous non-general fund guidebook, but along with all of that work is an increase in sort of this temporary offset, right? As we use down and reach those target balances, things might, depending on how you watch this meeting, somebody might think things look okay. But $400,000 of the FY26 budget was from this temporary funding source. And I believe that's the plan to continue for FY27, but at some point we will reach those target balances and that funding source will end. So it's just really important to keep that's a strategy, but has an end point.
What we talked about last year was the 2 to 3 year, or even for some of the funds, 3 to 4 year plan to get to those targets that are identified in the NGFG. And so that then, yes, it puts us at a fiscal cliff, the big one being the school choice fund.
Did I see a hand in the audience or no? Yeah, Mike, you want to come forward?
Hi, Mike Berlinski, as Chair of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. I had a question and then I wanted to make a comment following that. So the question is, are the boards interested in additional state grants around $1 million to reduce our utility costs, which have been about $1.5 million a year? Thank you. Yes. So given that, I just wanted to share that the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee has recommended that Westford level up from a green community to a Massachusetts climate leader community to be eligible for additional grants to fund clean energy and energy efficiency projects that would be in line with the budget task force recommendations to reduce our utility costs. And following many of our neighboring communities. So we hope there's more enthusiasm for those efforts, and we look forward to working with your boards to address these budget challenges. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Anything else I think we're kind of wrapped up on this
I
agenda
think
item?
we're good. I would remind the public that we are looking at efficiency gains, and there's a few sort of principal ones that we're continuing to work on. Like one of the projects we talked about last night, like the solar project to help reduce our electricity expense. So gone but not at all forgotten. There's still an active effort pursuing the things the Budget Task Force identified and continuing to run down opportunities there. Also, something that will come before the Select Board again and maybe before the public is the pay-as-you-throw approach. Pay-as-you-throw, as we're currently thinking, would primarily be to reduce the waste generated. So it would be primarily, that would have a benefit to the to the town budget because we pay for having the trash picked up, but we also pay for all the tonnage to be incinerated. Less tonnage means we'd save money. So pay-as-you-throw is really a mechanism to try to reduce the waste that way, as opposed to being a revenue source of any scale. We sort of expect that if we do proceed with it, the revenue might just cover the costs of managing the program. So it's a valuable thing to do. It could have a long-term benefit. We're not looking at that as being a major operating fund budget lever in the coming year.
But it will help to rein in that budget. That budget has been growing.
Yes,
You know,
it will have a big, it definitely, have if we look, I mean, I don't know if anyone remembers the numbers, and Mike's taking the night off after last night probably, but if we look like other communities that have a pay-as-you-throw program like the one we're thinking about, it would be a further 10% or something reduction in tonnage that would need to be incinerated. So meaningful savings.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nate.
Tom, for those of us who aren't able to tune in every week for Select Board, can you just tell us what the timeline is on pay-as-you-throw in decision-making?
I think Mike is going to come back with a specific refined proposal, but I think we're hoping to have something in calendar year 26, certainly.
Probably even before that, if you want to insert it in the budget, we would be ready, late November, early December.
Right.
to
So
come back with a
for
proposal.
implementation for next year. Yeah.
Implementation for July 1st.
Yeah.
But when will the Select Board be sort of making final decisions on?
I'm not sure when,
what they would
Mike, do
recommend?
you offhand when Mike is next scheduled to come back with
He
this?
was really looking for the indication this evening from the
Okay.
group about should we move forward or not. And then we also have a meeting with our internal departments to go through the budget line by line tomorrow, see where we're short, see where we may need to make up those, and what might be reasonable for a pay-as-you-throw option related to any offsets. So you should be ready at the end of November.
Yeah, so I think by the end of the year, we should have what we think our proposal is and what we think the action plan is.
Is there going to be a process for, besides just coming to Select Board meetings, for soliciting specific public input? You kind of did a survey, I think, originally, but now if you have a more concrete proposal, an opportunity to say, this is what we're thinking, we're soliciting, you're actively soliciting feedback as opposed to, if you want to talk about it, come to a meeting?
Yeah, we're also going to be refining that survey and sending it out again. So based
Okay.
upon the data that we got, based upon the options that are available, redoing a survey to the community as well on that. And then we'll probably have some other public listening sessions.
I think that's great. I mean, it's obviously something that affects everybody, and be one of those things that if it just showed up all of a sudden would probably cause a lot of concern and frustration. And so the opportunity to put it into the public sphere is greatly appreciated.
Well, this has been helpful for me, just to set the stage and sort of get my head wrapped around everything before we dive into December. So thank you, everyone. And Tom, I will turn it back over to you. I'm 10 minutes early.
Wow. All right, thank you so much. Do you and your boards want to adjourn?
Sure, yeah. The Finance Committee want to adjourn. Can I get a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know if we can hear them, but.
Oh, yeah.
We should be able to
Want
hear
both?
them. Hari, do you want to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
John Leffers as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn the school committee? Moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Bill.
And Bill? There we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our colleagues. We'll give everyone a second to, they don't want to stay for the rest. I mean, we got good stuff coming up, so I would stay if I were you.
Don't take it personal.
Especially after last night. I think we give everyone a little bit of grace if they want to get it.
I'm having major issues with this computer, which links to the screen. We still have people on Zoom, but I won't be able to show anything to this group. We don't have a lot, but I just want to warn you all that I don't.
I think we'll make the best of it.
Would you think turning off the projector?
We could access the
Packet on, yes, you can. And I can show things for the members of the public, but we just can't show them to the public on the screen.
Okay, why don't we get back to it?
Take care.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night. Always interested in feedback. We haven't done this sort of table-setting version of this meeting before. Felt like it was good use of time, but if anyone has feedback. Emily!
Hey.
Hey, Emily, we're having a meeting up here, darling.
Yeah, rabble rousers.
All right.
Rabble
Okay, folks, thanks. We are back to our, now our 8:20 agenda item to review and accept the fiscal '27 budget policy. Maybe Kristen, if you could just explain what the budget policy is, and then we can take comments from the board.
Sure. So each year, the select board has a budget policy that derives a set of standards and items that help guide me when I'm preparing the budget to present to you in December. We first review this internally as a staff, then we review it with the finance committee. They did review it in September.
Yes.
And provided minimal feedback. We did obviously change the dates from fiscal '26 to fiscal '27. And Dan, I don't have it pulled up in front of me because I'm trying to manage a few other things here. What were the other updates to the budget policy?
We did a
They were
lot of
very
line in,
minor.
line out.
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is a little spotty at the moment too.
Well, I think the changes are fine. I mean, I read it and it looks good to me.
Yeah, I think the changes look fine too. I
It's
can.
mostly just phrasing. It's basic policy stays pretty much the same. Right. It's just the way it's kind of worded. We still have
I
that
can
goal
pull
of
it up
making
here
10% of the operating budget for our, wonder where we are on that.
Our debt levels, we have authorized some debt with the library and the PFAS plants out there, so, but we haven't permanently borrowed for those yet. We're in that process. In the next couple of years, as those will be built through the Clean Water Trust. So we're approaching getting back up there because we have been under for a couple of years.
Yeah, we were down around 3%, weren't we?
Yes, yep. After we paid off all the school buildings and the highway garage, we were definitely lower than that target. And
Just for members of the public, if you're interested in what we're talking about, because we're having a little bit of a challenge with our AV setup today, if you look in the meeting packet, you can look at the select board fiscal budget policy, and there's a change control version of it, which you can see up there. And just this document does a couple things. It gives Kristen and Dan some guidance on key things that are important to establishing the budget, like how should we treat our debt obligations, how should we fund our retirement plan, what service levels do we want to try to maintain, what do we want to have in terms of capital. We talked earlier about the problems that we have in maintaining our physical plant adequately, so we give some guidance about how much money should be allocated for that. So there's a lot of kind of helpful rules of the road as they go into the detailed budget planning process, which is here. What's being proposed is not a substantial change to what it's been in the past. It does update the retirement funding, what's called the OPEB, but the retirement funding, really in response to what Kristen mentioned earlier, which was the bond rating agency feedback to us, that if we want to stay on the safe side of the bond rating, AAA, we need to be putting more money there. I think that's really the only change that's of consequence here.
I was able to get it on the screen for people who are watching on
okay,
WCAT
good.
and Zoom, so thank you for your patience.
Any questions from the board about the budget policy direction?
I think it looks good.
Looks good.
Okay, do we typically take a vote on this?
We do, and then we use that to create the final budget.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve and accept the fiscal '27 budget policy as represented in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Next up is the review of special town meeting. Kristen, do you want to kick it off, or do you want just a sort of a comment sharing from the board?
I can certainly kick this off. I spoke with Madam Moderator earlier today. She's unable to make tonight's meeting, but is collecting her thoughts as well, and maybe before the board. Just for members of the public, and I shared this with the board earlier, we had 718 registered voters come to check in at town meeting last evening. I believe the majority were there for a portion of Article 3. I think all of the staff did an excellent job executing, checking people in, giving presentations at town meetings, so I'd just be looking for any feedback that you as a board may have for last night or for the future.
I have a thought or two, but does anyone have any feedback they'd like to start with?
Yeah, I guess my feedback is I felt, and I don't know if this is because of technical challenges that the moderator did mention, but it seemed to take a lot longer to collect the vote electronically this time around than in
Yes.
previous town meetings, so we should endeavor to try to make that a little bit more speedy if we could in the future.
So that was based because we had 1,600 clickers in play. We did, at about halfway point through the meeting, unassemble the clickers in the PAC, so that did expedite it towards the end of the meeting, but we are working with Meridian, our vendor, to see if there's other ways that we can expedite that process.
Even though I know she said that, it still seemed like it was long, because I know we've had that many clickers actually in play across the 2 different locations, and it didn't seem to take as long as last night's did for some reason, so I don't, yeah, we can endeavor to make that shorter. I think that would make people a little bit happier.
Yeah, there was a comment from the floor about sort of use of our own policy about what shows up at special town meeting. I think that would be a good practice for us to institute, sort of, when we are first looking at the warrant, just look again at the policy and say, I mean, most of the things on there had a timeliness factor, which really required review. I'm not sure all of them did, though, so it would have been a useful sort of lens to frame things before we went through it. I think if we come to it later, it's sort of entrenched.
Right, and it's
hard to
ultimately your
change.
board's decision if you want a policy or not. So you could determine we don't want a policy, or we do, so we can have that conversation as well.
One of the things is just, when we go through setting up the warrant, decide right then if we're gonna put something in, and whether or not we're gonna go by the policy or not, or what part of that policy applies to that, so we go in ahead of time, and we know that. And it's already out there, and we don't get caught, caught short like they did.
Yeah, I mean, one obvious challenge of the meeting is it just went on so long. I'm not sure it would have been that easy to predict the number of amendments and the other things that took, added a bunch of time. I guess maybe just looking at the number of articles relative to past town meetings, just to get a sense of, the thought experiment is, with what we know now about how long it took, should we have organized things differently or limited the agenda in some way? If we look at it and we say, no, you know what, it was similar in scope to what we've done in others, it just went 2 hours longer because that was what happened in the room, that could absolutely be true, in which case we wouldn't want to make any change necessarily. But it is a lot to ask for people, and I think we didn't get the highest quality engagement, at least from me, in the last hour. Yeah, Noel?
Is there, I know at the beginning, all non-voting members were asked to leave the room, but what is the policy on kids being in the room? Because I was a little concerned that we were doing, an yay or nay vote, and kids were voting.
They were voicing.
So in general, the moderator has had children 12 and under are allowed to stay with their parents in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, we asked that question before we got started, and that's what the answer was.
Yeah, kudos to the energy level from those kids, but you're right, it was not.
It wasn't overbearing, but it was there.
Yeah, it was worth thinking
It was,
about.
we got to educate our youth on what
Yeah.
town meeting is as
Right.
well, so we could
Yeah.
turn it as a
As long as they're not
positive
trying to
spin,
vote.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot to like about the meeting. I think it was very well run. I think the logistics were great.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten used to having really excellent logistics, which is we shouldn't forget what an accomplishment that is.
Maybe I'll have a cry room.
Kind of like a young soccer player room. Yeah, I don't know if they'll be here at the next meeting, John. Maybe. We hope. Any other comments from the group?
Do we have any suggestions on how we can either streamline the amendment process? Because that constantly seems to be a problem. So somebody comes up and says, I want to amend an article, and then they have to type it up, and it just seems to take forever. And people get confused because we start discussing it before it's been typed up and shown on the monitor. I don't know if there's a way, either through education or how are they doing it? Do we have a computer there for them now to use to type it up? I mean, in the past, we've had them write it, and then we have to have it transcribed, and it's just, yeah.
So this year, the moderator did supplement with a form. So in previous years, it was just find a scrap piece of paper and write it down. She did have a form. What is the number of the article? What is your name? What is the amendment? We can certainly explore potential other
Just
options.
have a Word document on a laptop available for people to type in, and somebody can copy and paste it.
Perhaps
Just make it a little bit faster.
Right at the microphone?
Yeah, or on one of the side tables, I mean, anywhere, just, that seemed to me to take a lot of time, whereas the fact that people were making amendments.
Yeah, I mean, if they add an amendment, it adds more time than a normal article, because everyone has to figure out what it is and understand it, and then people debate it. So it's a substantial add. So if you've got 13 articles and 13 amendments, it doubles the length of the meeting. And
Right.
on one hand, people should have that right, but I hope that people exercise it in a more thoughtful way. I think in any case, I think it's a right that the members of the meeting have, so.
It is, and I think while it was great to see the public engagement, one thing that I took away from that was, and this is of no fault of town staff, town government, but just, I think it's more a factor of what's going on at the national level, just a level of distrust in government in general. And there was a couple articles where it was clear that people were having difficulty broaching that and getting over that and allowing us as the town to move forward in certain projects. And that was disappointing for me to see and to hear. And I hope, since we did get, let's say, the trust of town meeting voters for some of these projects, that we execute to the best of our ability, which we always do, right? So that we don't have them coming back to us and saying, well, we gave you latitude to do X and you didn't deliver or whatever. But that was just disappointing. I don't know how we solved that problem. Again, I think it's a bigger national issue that's just trickling down into the town, but.
Yeah, I was keeping track of how much time some of the people who felt strongly about an issue were taking, and it was a lot of time, and then the vote would be overwhelming the other way.
Right.
And I'm not sure that there's anything to do. I think it's a function of the climate.
It just is, yeah.
And so in terms of things we can work on, I think we can refresh ourselves on the policy as a filter up front. And maybe when we have a chance to talk to Madame Moderator, we could see if there's further ways to streamline the amendment process, because maybe that would help. But,
Yeah, I think still driving people towards the League of Women Voters town meeting review would have also, we try and do that all the time, but that clearly I think could help with answering people's questions so they're not asking questions for a town meeting. And we don't want to discourage that, but there seems to be a better way to get people informed rather than being on the floor of town meeting. So I don't know how this goes to communication. How do we drive people to that resource? But
that's a good thing to put in the checklist next year is let's make sure that we really emphasize that, because I felt like most of the times people ask a genuine information question, it actually got answered pretty succinctly, and that didn't feel like it took too much time.
Yeah,
John.
audience, Diane.
Oh, yeah, Diane, do you have something you'd like to say? Yeah, please come to the mic.
Diane Wood, 122 Depot. I concur with everything everybody said. It was very long. And I laughed to myself thinking it was longer than several years ago when we had the firearms shop, debate. It was even longer than that with all those people. One suggestion may be, and this is a resource, or maybe a volunteer, the amendment, as we spoke, the amendment process was very time consuming. People didn't know what to do. People didn't have anything to write on. I don't know if we could have a volunteer that would be set aside on their have their laptop there to be able to work with the person to actually just type it in and hand it over, because that seemed to be a little time consuming. They didn't know what to write, how to write it. They ended up doing it, but that took up some time too. And we were parallel tasking. Somebody was writing and Angela continued. But that's a resource, a volunteer, I don't know, but maybe some way.
Well, I mean, to build on that, which is a great point. I mean, we did have the two, I don't know what we were terming them, but Ellen and Lynn, right?
Yeah, the coaches.
Mentors.
Yeah, the mentors would be a great resource if they had a computer. I mean, Ellen obviously is an expert at crafting that sort of language.
Right, and explain that to the audience. Half of us don't know what the process is and can quickly follow it, so that dragged. So it's an education.
Yeah.
It was long. There were a lot of comments. I think, people feel they want to get their voice out, obviously, and it was a long one, but it was productive.
Yeah.
Everybody was tired and went home. We got things done. So, but
Good, thanks, Diane. I appreciate the comment. We'll pass that along to Madame Moderator. Yeah, Emily?
Emily Teller, two things. I know that there were forms, but I think they were out in the lobby. And I'm thinking maybe if Angela or the town moderator can have them right there, and somebody makes an amendment and they say, come up, here's the form, fill it out. Do you know what I mean? There it is.
Yeah.
But, and also, Ellen used to have 3 mics. She used to have a question, opposing, and an affirming.
Mm-hmm.
And she judged by the length, she would balance debate that way. And maybe if we go back to that, that gives the moderator some time, or methodology to sort of, I don't know what, balance.
There's only one position in town that has absolute power, and that is
Yeah,
the moderator.
totally.
So we'll pass along the suggestions to her. Thank you, Emily. Okay, yeah, Sean?
Just briefly, Tom, I know we've been talking kind of about the structure and format of last night, but just content-wise, can I address something on Article 3, or
Sure.
should we save that? Okay,
Yeah.
so Article 3, the $300,000 sidewalk tractor didn't get passed. One thing that I didn't hear discussed is what's kind of our plan now that didn't get passed, because it was alluded to that the vendor is just retiring, and that's why this would come up. So I just want to kind of reassure folks that there's something in the works, and that we're not going to have 3 miles of sidewalk that's not going to get plowed.
No, so,
you know?
so there was 2 asks
Yeah.
for sidewalk plows last night, so I'll start with the easier one first. So the
Okay.
$40,000 ask that did get approved, we will be seeking to purchase that piece of equipment, and we will be plowing the sidewalks that are currently being plowed at this point in
Got it.
time.
By a vendor.
Nope, we will be doing it in-house.
Used to be done by vendors.
Used to be done by
Got
a
it,
vendor.
yes.
We will be doing it
It will
in-house.
be done by us, yes.
If the $300,000 tractor was approved last evening, we would have been able to expand our sidewalk plowing for future, as well as use that equipment in the summertime for roadside mowing and other purposes.
Got it. Okay.
I guess there's also sort of a lesson there. I don't know if there's something we could have done with timeline or some other way to have the communication with the finance committee. It felt like part of the issue was they didn't agree, and part of it was the timeline got pretty compressed, and there wasn't like a chance to address all their concerns. So I don't know if there's any like lesson learned for us there about
Absolutely.
getting feedback early, so at least, I mean, they may still not agree, which is certainly their purview, but at least it's not driven by timeline compression. So, we can put that on the feedback list. Valerie, do you have a comment?
It's sort of a different topic, so it looks like John had a comment.
Well, my only thought on it was that we called it a pilot program. And to everybody else, that's just an experimental to see if it really works. And if we're going to do the sidewalks, I think we should make it a policy to do so much of the sidewalks or in certain areas.
Well, we did, so we adopted a policy at our last meeting, right? So it should no longer be called a pilot program, and I do think there was a missed opportunity for us to, at the beginning of that request, to provide a little bit of background to
Yeah.
I think, show that there is a policy, what our plans are. It kind of got worked in as part of the discussion, I think, after Nate raised a question, or Scott raised a question. So I guess if I had to do it over again, I would have liked to have seen, a 2-minute overview of why we're asking for this, what's the process, to specifically, because we knew there were outstanding concerns from FinCom and Capital, to specifically address those, because those were powerful messages that I think did influence the vote to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I was right there with you. I saw the agenda. I didn't make this suggestion ahead of time, but with what we now know, Kristen, does it make sense to you that we would have been better served by having a little presentation there up front?
Yeah, I did speak with the moderator this morning, and there were several articles that we identified that would have been better served last evening if she had allowed that time up front, and she was trying to move the meeting. So she said in hindsight, she would like to do that in the future.
Okay, so we asked, and she didn't feel it was appropriate, but now, based on that experience, she maybe feels
Right.
differently. Okay.
We want to be much more clear in the future of what the expectations are.
That's great. Okay, are we done with that?
Yeah,
I think.
Okay, Valerie?
Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Valerie Young.
No,
What's your address, Valerie?
Circle, yeah.
Speaking of
School
myself,
committee.
Valerie Young, 4 Marianne Drive. It's actually on the budget policy
Yep.
document, but I had raised my hand. I didn't know enough, like to Diane, to wave you down and stand up at the microphone, but,
Happy to go
and I
back
know
to
it's been approved. And I don't know if this is just like sort of the grammar police, but I've just always had an issue with bullet 5. Because I think if you read it plainly, it says that we will strive to maintain current service levels, and then it's if revenue and excess free cash are insufficient for that purpose. So the implication is that excess free cash could also go towards service levels. Now, I know all of my time in these conversations, that's not our best practice. We try to avoid that. I guess I would just share that feedback that I think it reads that way, and if that's not the intent, that we should think about that wording for that bullet to make it clear that, because we've been above that level for a while, but we never make that choice to put free cash toward services, which I'm not advocating for. I just think that in black and white it reads like it's
It's an option.
Okay, so we represent to the public that it's sort of not on the table to use free cash, but this policy suggests that it is.
Yes.
That's a concern.
That was much more articulate than Dan was just listening.
Yeah, so the only instance when we do is at a town meeting, when we have, say, the tax rate is set and that we're at the annual town meeting, we have Medicare expenses, then that's an opportunity to use free cash. So I think that's where it derived from, but you're right, it's not one of those main sources that we want to advertise.
Is there language, Dan, that you think would fit our historic use of free cash to make it more clear? Thanks, Valerie.
Perhaps something like limited free cash in extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, I think
Something
it would be,
like that.
I think that's a good feedback
Yeah.
point. Dan, do you want to think about that, and maybe we can have a very brief, well, first of all, Kristen, if we did have us come back with just that brief amendment at the next meeting, do you have what you need to proceed with the budgeting
Yes, I
process?
do,
Okay.
yes.
Just, now that we're talking about it, could I offer another comment?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry. I'll blame it on Valerie.
Yeah, right.
But,
Valerie, open the floodgates.
I
You
mean,
guys ready for an 11 o'clock? You guys
right,
ready?
right, no.
11:01?
Strive to maintain current services, so, service levels. I think, like, if we're already at a level of service that we are at because of budget constraints, like prior year budget constraints, does that sort of suggest to you that you're gonna try to maintain at that level versus, I'm trying to see if I can explain this better. So like if we need to have police at X and we're at Y because of budget, the direction's saying at current levels. Well, if your current levels is, Y, but you really need to be at X, does that give you the guidance to stay at Y, or should you be striving to get to X?
Well, I think we're looking at this as an all-encompassing document, so I have
Yeah.
to look at each bullet point and bring it all together.
Yeah.
If there's not budget to get us from Y to X, we'd be striving to stay at current levels. We're always seeing
I
increasing
think that's the
costs.
intent of why we're phrasing it that way, but it just comes across to me like we would never try to make an attempt to get above.
To fix
what
it,
our-
yeah.
Yeah,
right.
ultimately, we'd always want to be that way, but if we're so constrained,
If we're
I'm
only
happy
doing,
to-
if we're only doing it for this budget year, I guess I'm okay with this. Like, if
Uh,
it was a multi-year budget guidance, I mean, really what we want to do is we want to
Review it every year.
we want to make the absolute best effort we can to provide the best mix of services with the resources we have.
Well, 'cause
Like,
this-
my interest is not maintaining the status quo, it's providing the best set of services that we can possibly muster.
So what I don't want to get in trouble with here is, we look at this, and then when we come forward and say, well, we want to enhance economic development, we
Right.
want to have a budget analyst, we want to potentially get a facility manager assistant, right?
Yep.
That's clearly not current services. So would those requests be at odds with this direction? That's where my concern's coming from.
The word is strive, get rid of the word strive.
We
Well,
have-
I almost think so now we've opened Pandora's box.
Yeah,
Thanks,
sorry.
Val. I mean,
Say maintain
it-
service levels.
Last time she makes a comment. Yeah, I guess I would argue that the whole idea of maintaining status quo is sort of like this sort of like clutch, hanging from the cliff feeling, which is our feeling. But I think it's really to provide the best mix of services for the community as we understand it. But anyway, for this particular cycle, or do we want to ask? We've already asked Dan to come back with language that more clearly represents our free cash policy or historical approach. Do we also want to ask Kristen to think about?
I think we should.
This
I
first
just
sentence?
don't want some member of the public to come back to us and say, this is your policy, now why are you turning around and asking for 3 new positions, or, whatever.
Because
right?
presumably you want to make trade-offs. We don't want to maintain current services if we can add something more valuable and drop something less
be
valuable.
more efficient.
Correct. I just don't know how we word it a little. Maybe we
Dan,
just
do
need
you want to just?
We'll try to take a stab at it.
Just tweak it
Just
a
think
little
about
bit.
that.
We'll talk about that. We'll take a look at it.
Okay,
I think we understand.
okay, appreciate that.
I had one
Yep.
question.
Uh-oh.
About the netting fields.
Yeah. Okay.
Since this is
So we're
gonna
back to
be-
town
How
meeting.
did we get to
Yeah.
nutting fields?
We're now back on the agenda item,
Okay,
review of
sorry.
special town meeting.
So this is gonna be something that the town is potentially gonna be having to do every 8 to 10 years. Should we be setting up a stabilization fund for this instead of having like a big ask, set aside money?
So,
Go ahead.
I can address that if you don't,
Yeah,
if
go
you don't
ahead.
mind. So the Park and Rec Commission has done extensive review and have tried to look at how we are setting our permit fees for field use. As part of that discussion has been, how do we institute, maybe as an additional fee or part of the permitting fee itself, some way to put aside money for capital replacement. There's a lot of challenges associated with that. I've spoken with Mike, who is now, I think, heading up the recreation aspects of town operations, and he's committed to work with the recreation department on this and to try to come up with the appropriate number so that we can make sure that we're not coming back in 8 to 10 years with nothing in the coffers in terms of capital replacement.
And we're talking about that townwide as well. You know, we hear a lot of other capital projects, so that's why we're putting that capital plan in place, and then hopefully following up with some ways to potentially make up that differential along the way, so the asks are not so big at the long run.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, great. Anything else on special town meeting? Okay, we're to old and new business. We have a request from the Cultural Council to appoint Emily Glass to a full member seat for a term expiring June 30, 2026. Any questions or comments from the board on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Go ahead.
It's not specific to this request, but in terms of the citizen activity form and the process that we just approved a few meetings ago, we did get a fairly comprehensive email from Mike from Clean Energy about the process and the concern and overhead associated with having to go back 2 years and look at everybody who's sort of and reach out to everybody that may have shown some interest in popular, busy committees. I do see that being a little bit of a burden for a chair to have to manage. So his thought process was that we should scale that back. So I was just wondering, it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but is there any appetite of this board to maybe review what Mike's recommendation is and bring that policy back for a slight tweak at a future meeting?
I have no objection if you want to have that come back. And it would come back next time as a.
Honestly.
Well, have you chaired a committee with 2 years worth of people you got to contact? It's a pain in the ass. Excuse my language. I mean, I totally feel for it.
I didn't get the feeling that it was that big a burden. I mean, I see these come through, and.
Well, if we want to talk about it, it should be on the agenda. So what we can talk, we could add as an old business item for next meeting.
Okay. Do that.
Okay. When do we plan to do that? So I'll entertain a motion to approve the Cultural Council appointment of Emily Glass.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve amendments to the personnel policies and procedures. Kristen, you want to highlight the pertinent changes?
So my memo to you does change, let me just get to the correct document, does change slightly with last evening's general bylaw not passing. So I would not be looking for a change to the personnel policies for related to the classification or reclassification of positions. What I would be asking you to review this evening and approve is to maintain competition and recruitment. We are looking to increase our longevity payment by $100 per level of service. So after 5 years, increase from $700 to $800. The last time this was increased was in 2023, and we're also keeping pace with our union contracts that we're settling. We are also looking to increase vacation time for employees who are on the more junior side. Right now, we're at 2 weeks, and really that is just not enough for the employees that are coming in right now. They just don't see that as enough. So we're saying as a recruitment tool and a retention tool to increase the number of vacation days for 0 to 3 years from 10 days to 15 days, from 4 to 10 years from 15 days to 18 days, and 11 to 19 years from 20 days to 22 days, and leaving the 20 and over to 25 days. And that would be retroactive to July 1st of 2025. We are also looking to amend the Family Medical Leave Act to become in compliance with the state and federal law related to that area. And that is it for the personnel policies.
Okay, so we would like to have any discussion, but then ultimately a motion for items 6.9, 7.2, and 7.5 as represented in the document in our
That's correct.
packet. Any comments or questions about Kristen's proposal for those three subsections? Yep, go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. So the vacation day change, how was this determined? Did you do some sort of analysis against market communities to
We
determine
did.
that was what everybody else is sort of
Yes,
offering?
we did that, and then we've offered that at the unions that we've settled as well.
Okay.
We want to make sure that the non-union employees are on par with our union employees as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 6.9, 7.2, and 7.5 as represented in the packet.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Next up are minutes for approval. For release, regular session, September 9, 2025, and September 23, 2025. Any questions about those? And we, in executive session, already voted on this third item, but do we do it again in open
Yeah, we
session?
do an open
Okay.
session because it's for release.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'll entertain a motion to release regular session minutes from September 9th and September 23rd, 2025, and executive session minutes from September 23rd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board reports and updates. Let me just touch base with Noel and Sean about being the representatives for the Unit A negotiation that's coming up. Sounds like you're both comfortable in doing that. So Sean texted me earlier and reminded me that we actually in the past have had a primary and an alternate. So I think if you guys want to decide between you who's the primary and who's the alternate, you're both encouraged to go whenever you want to go, but it's just that way if you're organizing for travel or someone's sick or something, we've got somebody to cover.
Absolutely.
There's no voting, there's basically no difference between the alternate and the
Right,
primary.
right.
There's no voting right in this case.
I'm fine being primary.
Okay.
It's an observer.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I will respond to Catherine and let her know. Catherine, School Committee Chair. Any other board reports or updates tonight? Okay, let's go to Town Manager's report. Kristen?
Sure. So first is a series of grants. This would be to authorize the acceptance of the grant and for the town manager to sign any related amendments. The MBTA Community Catalyst Fund to support design improvements along Route 110 in the amount of $500,000 as requested by the Land Use Management Department. The Housing Works Infrastructure Program to design a sidewalk shared use path along portions of Powers Road in the amount of $250,000 as requested by the Land Use Management Department. And the Housing Choice Grant Program to support the planning for Neshoba Greenway, a proposed trail to provide connectivity to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail in the amount of $124,300 as requested by the Land Use Management Department.
Do you want us to take care of those first?
However the board wishes, I can move on.
You
if
can keep
needed.
going, I think.
Okay, great. So the next are a series of purchase orders that were related to the town meeting last evening. So the first is for 10 Kit New England LLC for the replacement of the turf on the Nutting Community Fields in the amount of $19,805,040 as requested by the Department of Public Works. I am not going to request the purchase order for item 2, that is the sidewalk tractor that did not pass last evening. And then the third one is for Seagrave Fire Apparatus LLC for the one Marauder fire engine with the 1,500 GPM pump and 750-gallon water tank in the amount of $1,425,657 as requested by the fire department. Just as a reminder, this is the truck that would take almost 4 years to come in, so we're ordering it now with the anticipated over $70,000 worth of savings if you place the order now. The fire department, is just a matter of purpose, the fire department is still seeking that other replacement vehicle. We thought we had one and some other department had scooped it up, so they're still in the hunt for that. So purchase orders 1 and 3 for this evening. And then contracts, you did review under executive session the Westford Public Works Association WPWA collective bargaining agreement for fiscal 26 through 28 as requested by the town manager's office. And then finally, the OPM contract approval with Vertex Companies LLC for the Robinson School Building project pending MSBA approval, which will occur on Monday, November 3rd.
For the turf work, you'll negotiate the contract and Kyle will supervise the work or
So
oversee.
this was a bid, so the
Okay,
bid
it's
price
already
is
done.
firm.
Okay.
And Kyle's team will supervise the work.
Okay, great. Any other questions about any of these items?
Well, the question I had on the OPM contract, they mentioned a lot about the conceptual design and not a whole lot about the feasibility study part. Are you comfortable with that process that they have as far as going through that?
Yeah, so all of that is boilerplate from the MSBA. We were
Yeah.
not able to amend any of that. We'll see more on the feasibility process when we go through the designer selection for the architect that will work on the project for the feasibility.
Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will,
Emily
oh,
has
hey,
a
Emily.
question.
Yep. Welcome,
May I
Emily.
please speak to one of them?
Yeah, please.
I'm gonna guess which one it is.
Guess what? I didn't wear my T-shirt. Emily Teller. I just wanted to speak to the one that concerns the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail connection with the McMod on 37 Powers Road. The Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail sent a letter, it's probably in your packet somewhere, but I brought some copies, June 3rd, and so did Jim Arciero, both in favor of this project. And from what I understand, talking to Jeff, and also looking at the original grant proposal, they're saying that the grant is for $124,300, and that perhaps, if necessary, the town has some limited funding still available from the Summer Village for about 10%. And it's my understanding from my experience working on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that the state law currently says if the town pays for the design, that the state will pay for the rest. And Jeff sort of implied to me that the state initiated this and they're really interested in having this happen, so they're likely to take on the cost of the trail. I don't have any idea if it'll be made to Mass DOT standards as a rail trail or whether it would be dirt or whatever, but I just wanted to speak in favor. The Friends already supported it officially as our group, and I just wanted to say it's a good thing.
Great.
So here are these two letters. I made
Thanks, Emily.
copies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I think then we want a motion to approve the grants as represented in our agenda, purchase orders 1 and 3 as represented in our agenda, and contracts as represented in our agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any questions or comments about correspondence?
No.
We addressed one of them. And we will solicit for new DEI committee members as well with that resignation.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of correspondence.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.